Today, we're going to talk about a tool that's designed to solve a huge problem in just about any business, and that's the massive gap between what customers really want and what a company actually builds. It's a problem that just wastes so much time, so much money, and leaves everyone frustrated.
But why does this happen so often? I mean, you've got these companies with all the resources in the world, brilliant people working for them. So why do they so often build things that customers just don't care about? It's a really expensive question that tons of organizations are trying to answer.
And this quote right here, it just nails it. It is not productive to improve something the customer did not want initially. We're not just talking about a few wasted hours here. We're talking about a fundamental misunderstanding of what the customer needed from the very beginning. So, what's really going on here? Well, it often boils down to a battle of voices. You have the voice of the customer on one side, but then it gets drowned out by the much louder voice of the organization. And that's where all the internal assumptions, what the marketing department wants, what the CEO thinks, that's where all that starts to warp what customers are actually trying to tell you. Some organizations, they go to some pretty extreme lengths to fix this. Take the US Air Force's Blue 2 program. They literally took their designers and put them in the shoes of the aircraft mechanics, out in the cold, busting their knuckles, trying to get a bolt loose in some impossibly tight space. It's a powerful way to force that firsthand understanding of what your user is actually going through.
But what if there was a more systematic way to bridge this gap? One that didn't involve getting your knuckles busted. Well, that is exactly where this methodology called Quality Function Deployment, or QFD for short, comes into play. So, what is QFD? At its heart, Quality Function Deployment is a really disciplined, team-based tool for planning. Its entire job, its whole purpose, is to translate those kind of vague things customers say they want into very specific, actionable things that engineers can actually design and build. Think of it as a formal process for listening and then translating.
And QFD is really built on a few key ideas. First, it's totally customer-driven. Everything starts with their voice. It's also team-based, so it brings marketing, design, and engineering all to the same table. It uses these really cool graphical charts to organize everything, and it's a blueprint for what's called quality by design, which is a fancy way of saying it finds and fixes problems before they become expensive headaches down the line. Okay, so let's get into the main tool in the QFD toolbox. It's called the House of Quality, and it's the master blueprint where all this translation work happens. Yep, the name's a little quirky, but the way it organizes really complex information is just genius. Building this house is actually a pretty logical step-by-step process. First, you get the what's. This is literally the voice of the customer, what they're asking for. Next, you define the hows. These are the technical specs your team can actually measure and build. Now, step 3 is the most critical part, the relationship matrix. This is where you map the connections, scoring how strongly each technical how affects each customer what. And finally, you build the roof. This is where you analyze how your technical solutions affect each other. And this is so important because it lets you spot engineering trade-offs. Like, hey, if we make this more durable, is it also going to get a lot heavier? You see those conflicts before you even start. But here's the thing. The House of Quality isn't just a diagram you hang on the wall. It's the engine for a really powerful analysis tool. And this is the part that truly changes a company's culture. It moves you from designing based on gut feelings to a mindset that's completely driven by data. And this slide really shows the difference. On one side, you have the old way, intuition-based design, where decisions are just based on what the company thinks is best. But on the other side, you've got the QFD way, which is totally data-driven. It forces you to do a structured analysis that translates those fuzzy customer needs, like I want it to be easy to use, into actual quantitative targets that engineers can design for. And that right there is the magic of QFD as an advanced analysis tool. It takes all that subjective, kind of fuzzy feedback from customers and transforms it into an objective, quantitative model. That model lets teams make decisions, figure out trade-offs, and put resources where they'll have the biggest impact for the customer, not just based on who has the loudest voice in the meeting. It turns opinions into a real blueprint for success. So, okay, it's a powerful framework, but what does that actually mean for a business? Let's look at the real-world, tangible results for companies that really commit to QFD. Take a look at this number, 61%. Toyota, who was one of the first big companies to adopt QFD, reported a cumulative reduction of 61% in their startup costs for new cars after they started using it. That is a huge amount of money saved, just by getting the design right the first time. And it's not just about money, it's about speed. Back in the late 80s, your typical US automaker took about 5 years to get a new car to market. Well, Toyota, using QFD, was doing it in 3 years, and Honda was doing it in just 2.5. QFD was a massive reason they could get to market so much faster.
So let's just wrap up the key benefits here. It obviously improves customer satisfaction because you're building what they want. It slashes those super expensive engineering changes that happen late in the game. It forces teams to actually work together. It creates this amazing database for future projects. And, like we just saw, it gets your product to market way, way faster.
So I'll leave you with this thought. Just imagine for a second, what could your organization, your team, build if every single decision was truly and analytically driven by the unfiltered voice of your customer? What becomes possible then?